Okay, so we have Raph here, a brilliant astrologer and numerologist, and I thought it'd be interesting to start the year asking his take on the year to come. But also, Raph, I was just mentioning, a lot of people said last year was really tough for them. It weren't for me. The year before was the tough. In fact, the first year of lockdown, I had some major stuff to deal with. Last year, I actually had major breakthroughs. I had to bust my ass to get them. So is next year very different from last year?
Oh, yes, absolutely. 2023 is a completely different ball game. It's going to be a lot faster. It's going to be a lot more dynamic in many ways. And so I've kind of split this into three to share with everybody today. So as we come into this new year, we are starting with a Mercury and a Mars retrograde. So the first thing that obviously we're going to see is there are going to be slowdowns. There are going to be, you know, a little hiccup here, there and everywhere. But really, this is aimed at getting you to where you need to be so that you're ready to put your foot to the pedal when that moment comes. So what I've said to everybody else is, it's kind of like, you know, when you're on a bus or on a train or on a plane, as soon as you land, everybody gets up like a mad person rushing for the door and you get a bottleneck. Wait for everybody else to do the headless chicken stuff. Move through January, nice, chilled, easy, because when we get to the 22nd of January, that is go time. Every single planet in the sky, including the outer big boys, are all going to be direct. That's going to be like a powerful tidal wave of energy that is just literally pushing us right the way through till April. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fast. It's going to be furious. It's going to be dynamic. This year, as you know, is a universal year 7 in terms of its numerology. So this, I mean, the 7 card, obviously in tarot, as we know, and is the Chariot. So again, fast, furious, lots of successes, lots of victories. But we have to look at both sides, right? So the opposite energy to that in the tarot wheel is the Tower card. So you want to make sure that you're planning, and I'm going to get to this in just a moment, your planning and your foundations are absolutely solid. So I'm calling 2023 not only a better year than 2022, but the higher octave of 2022. So we get to really take all of the lessons, the knowledge, the background that we took from 2022, maybe a few setbacks, maybe a little bit harder than we'd expected. But this year is definitely a forward momentum energy. And so with that, I'm calling this kind of a game of two halves, right? So January, right the way, probably through till about June, that is the time to plan. It's the time to lay your foundation, sow your seeds, make those deals, make those connections, get everybody that you kind of think, yeah, you know what, I want this person on my team. I need this person to help back me up. This is where I can show up for them. And then when you get to the second half of this year, that's where you really kind of dig in on what you've already set into motion. So this first kind of 6 months, I'm calling it, especially because we've got the eclipses this year in 2 separate types of energy. So last year, 2022 was a very thick energy. So your Leos, your Scorpios, Aquarius, and Taurians, they really went through it in 2022. You'll be glad to know this year, you're getting a whole lot of goodies, and it's going to be a lot easier because we're moving out of that sort of fixed, stubborn, stay the same energy into this kind of forward pushing, forward momentum, direct energy of the cardinal signs. So this first half belongs to Mars because the 2 eclipses that we're having in this part of the year, in both April, we've got the Aries eclipse. In May, we've got the Scorpio eclipse. Now, in ancient astrology, Scorpio is actually ruled by Mars. So this first half of the year, that explosive, dynamic, you know, really sort of active energy, that's all Martian energy. And then as we come into the second half of the year, the next set of eclipses will all be, they'll be in Libra and in Taurus. So the second half of the year belongs to Venus. So if Mars is action, energy, passion, drive, forward momentum, pushing it, like really getting your stuff going, getting out of those starting blocks, that's where you're making it happen, right? And then as we come into that second half of the year, from about, I would say, June 5th, between June 5th and June 21st, because obviously that's the summer solstice point, right? So at that point, we do step into the second half of the year. But as we step into that next half of the year, Venus takes over. Venus is harmony, diplomacy, money, finances, all of the finer things in life. And what she's trying to show us, and what I really want all of you to take away from this, that second half of the year, the value that you place on yourself, your work, and what you bring to the table is what's going to set the tone for what the world and people are going to give you. Given the fact that this is a numerology 7 year, which is ruled by Neptune, we have a mirror kind of energy. Neptune is a mirror / an amplifier. And so what tends to happen here is we get more of what we set out into the world. So when we're talking about how you really view yourself, you got to make sure that your self-worth, your self-esteem are up there with the best. In a nutshell.
We lost sound.
Right. Sam went there. You still with us, Raph? I think you've frozen a bit.
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we can, yeah.
Awesome.
So in a nutshell.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, this is a game of two halves. And like I said, it is definitely going to be a much better year. We've got kind of like a handover. And if you do this year right and you really set a solid, firm foundation, you're going to fly in 2024. I genuinely believe that. So months that you need to look out for, March of 2023 is a packed astrological month. We've got so much happening. You've got Pluto moving out of the sign of Aquarius, out of the sign of Capricorn and into Aquarius. That's a huge deal for everybody. And I advise you to pay attention to that, certainly between, let's say, March 23rd and I would say about July 15th, or well, in fact, let's say June 21st, because that is going to give you a heads up. Whatever's happening in that period, it's a foreshadowing of what we're getting for the next 20 years. Pluto takes a long time to move through a sign, and it's coming into the sign of Aquarius, the sign of the people, the sign of technology, the sign of advancement, and it's going to show us how to get the best and the purest potential out of not only our groups and our social networks, but also out of technology. I'm pegging it right here and right now. This year, we are going to see some crazy leaps in tech. And from here on in, over the next 20 years, it's like, you know, when you were younger and you watched Star Trek thinking, that looks amazing, that's going to be awesome. That's going to be our lives within the next 20 years. You're going to see advancements in tech, medicine, business. What we actually care about as a society is going to shift dramatically over the next 20 years. And it really does start here. We're getting that first little sort of sprinkle of the special sauce that's coming. Now, you know, not everything is all light and fluffy cookies. It is Pluto after all. So there are going to be some moments of that transit where we kind of think, okay, so this is the other end of that. But that's life, right? You got the good and the bad. You got to take your sweets with your sours, and you take your goods wherever you can get them. When it comes to Saturn, the big hard taskmaster, is moving out of the sign of Aquarius. Yes! I'm so chuffed about this one. It has been a rough ride for all of us because Saturn rules Aquarius. In ancient astrology, Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius. And obviously it's the ruler of Capricorn as well. So we've had Saturn moving through signs that it rules, giving us hard lessons, really holding us to task for everything that we want, and really, in a sense, suppressing our connections and our networks. I mean, when Saturn moved into Aquarius, what happened? Social distancing. Bang, right? Like Saturn, the planet of limitations and, you know, rules, regulations, etc., where it kind of does this. It constricts, comes into the sign of the people, of connection, of social interaction, Aquarius, and bam, we've got lockdowns, we've got social distancing, we've got face masks, you know, all crazy stuff. But when it moves into Pisces, this is going to be fantastic. This happens on the 7th of March this year, and it's going to be fantastic because Sky Papa is drunk. All right, the Sky Granddaddy has had a few. He's in the sign of Pisces. He's going to be chilled, relaxing. And so it's said that in astrology, when Saturn moves into the 12th house, it's exalted. Pisces is the 12th house. So for the whole world, we're going to experience this as more spirituality, a stronger sense of spirituality. And here's the bit that I love for us, Anne. For those of us that are considered woo-woo and all the rest of it, we are going to be validated over the next 2.5 years as Saturn moves through Pisces. We are going to see all kinds of scientific research backing up psychic phenomena, healing, the power of intention. We've got this stuff happening now. Obviously, there's lots of science on it, but not to the level that we're going to see it. And as that stuff really starts to come up, any of you that have got businesses in these arenas, you're going to see them do very, very well. And then, as if that wasn't enough for the month of March, we've also got Mars, who's been retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So Mars in Gemini kind of is a frustrated Mars. It's because Mars is our action and our energy, but it's split because Gemini is a dual sign. So it goes in this way and this way. Mars likes direct. It wants to go from A to B, get it done, bish, bash, bosh. Whereas in Gemini, it's kind of like, am I going left? Am I going right? It's a frustrated Mars. Mars, out of all of the planets, hates to go retrograde. So it's been in Gemini, a sign that it doesn't do very well in. It's been retrograde, which it hates to do. So it's kind of been, I liken this to like, you know, like the drunken 15-year-olds that waddle around the park, and you know what I'm talking about. That's Mars retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So it's going to start to calm down now, and it will move into the sign of Cancer, which technically is Mars's sign of fall. But Mars now moves into a sign where it says, okay, you know what? I didn't really know what I was doing there, but I know what the objective is here. So what you care about, what you really feel to protect or defend within your life is going to be so important for you. So as we move through the month of March, that is a packed, energetic point of this year, which I'm really, I've got my eye on. I think it's going to be a good month. It's going to be an intense month, but I think it's going to be a good month. Then for those of you that have businesses in hospitality, so for those of you that have restaurants and stuff like that, Jupiter moves into Taurus in May. On May the 16th, Jupiter is going to come into Taurus, and this is going to be phenomenal because it's going to really see us focused on and getting more opportunities from agriculture, food, massage, Reiki, you know, restaurants, all of those kinds of entertainment industries to do with feeding your senses. You guys are going to do very well from that. And then the final month that the other month that I have my eye on is October, because we've got 2 eclipses in that month. We've got the eclipse in the sign of Libra, which is the first one that we've had for like 9-10 years. So this year, I want you to ask yourself on the Aries eclipse of April 20th and the Libra eclipse, I think it's the 15th of, no, it's the 14th of October. What was happening for you around 9-10 years ago? What were the biggest sort of themes, upheavals, or trends? Because you're going to be revisiting them this time. The difference is you're older, you're wiser, hopefully, right? But you're coming into this year with a stronger understanding of who you are and where it is that you actually want to be, because both of those eclipses in Aries and Libra are cardinal eclipses, and they're also solar eclipses. So these are seeding new beginnings, fresh starts in those areas of our lives. And then finally, for the Leo folk among you, whether you're a sun, moon, or Leo ascendant, this is your year for a hot boy or hot girl summer, whatever you want to call it. This is your year, right? This is the year to revamp, reinvent yourself. It's also going to be a fantastic year because Venus is coming into the sign of Leo on, I think it's like the 5th of June, and it's going to be there for 4 months. Venus is going to go retrograde as well. So that's like literally, it's going to up your self-esteem. When Venus comes into your sign, it makes you more beautiful, more attractive. You're more magnetic when the energy comes, when the Venus comes into your sign. So I know all of you are probably thinking, well, I'm not a Leo moon, sun, or ascendant. That's fine. You've got Leo somewhere in your chart. And that means that that 4-month transit is going to really offer you some blessings in that space of your life. It's also true that Venus is going to square Jupiter in that 4 months 3 times. So there's a potential here. Venus is known as the lesser benefic. So she loves to give gifts and presents and surprises and loves to make you consume sugar. So be mindful. Jupiter is known as the greater benefic. And so this planet loves to bring opportunity, and it loves to kind of say, you know what, whatever you need, I'm going to give you more than you need so that you can kind of take your pick of the bunch. And therein lie the challenge, because they're coming into what's known as a challenging aspect or a square. It's known as like a conversation of tension. But what I see this as, it kind of, excuse my language, it pisses you off enough to say, right, I'm not having that experience again. I'm going to do it like this from now on. The only challenge, because they are the best planets in the sky, really, the only challenge I see here is that we have a potential to overdo it. All right. And so you've got Jupiter in Taurus, you've got Venus in Leo. These are fixed sign energies. So you just want to be mindful. Yes, this is great, but, you know, too much sugar, not necessarily good for you. So you kind of get the gist of that one. Any questions, Anne, or anything you want to pick my brains on?
Whoa, loads. It's quite interesting because next year will be the lead up to the American elections, obviously the year before. Everyone, have you got anybody that stands out for you in America?
At the moment, no. What I will say though, aside from the a bit closer to home, I did make a prediction, and I'm going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons here, but I did make a prediction in a talk that I did just at the end of last year. I believe that Harry and Meghan will be coming back into the royal family this year at some point. And I also feel that Archie may very well be given a title.
Cool.
Just putting it out there. I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
when I was looking at it all, I was like, I wonder. And then this morning, just before we came on, I saw an article about Harry saying how he missed his dad and his brother. So we shall see.
I don't think things have worked out the way they expected, and I don't think they've had the support they expected. So they've actually done all their big stuff. They haven't got anywhere else to go. I'm talking to people in media. They got nowhere else to go. They can't go any bigger than they've gone. Their only way is back to the royal family and go, please, can we come back? Because they can only diminish now. They haven't had the support they thought. That's just happened. Lisa's put a hand up. Lisa, you've got a question?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's middle of the night, really, here in New York City, but for me, it's early morning here. I was just speaking of the royal family. I mean, we have a lot of interest in the royal family here, of course. And what happened to my video? Anyway, yeah, so we love Harry and Meghan. And I actually lived in London for 4 years in the early 2000s. Those are some wild years. But I wanted to know what you thought about Charles becoming king, because I've heard 2 different predictions that say that maybe he won't. And just wondered what you thought about that.
That's interesting.
Anne, do you want to go first?
I tell you, the only comment I'll make is when he was born, which was obviously a very long time ago, a whole bunch of astrologers actually said he'll never be king. And all these years he's been in, you know, standing in the sidelines, waiting to be king. It's very interesting you should say that, Lisa, because a whole bunch of astrologers, you've got to remember, what was that, 70 odd years ago, said he will never be king. So,
well, that's where I got it from. I read those predictions, and also didn't Diana's astrologer say the same thing?
Yeah,
about
it's
him.
really interesting that when he was a kid, that they said that, and all these years later. So let's see what happens. Let's see. Have you looked at his chart, Raph?
I haven't looked at his chart specifically, but I did look at the coronation chart. And I gotta say, I don't know who picked that, But for me personally, I was like, no, this does not work for me and interestingly enough, that chart was what I factored into that and the Leo, the Venus Leo retrograde. Those two things are the things that I looked at that made me think, there's something happening with Archie here. But going back to this, so the chart that his coronation happens on is an eclipse chart. And eclipses, they're known really in astrology as malefic events, certainly in technical, or should we say ancient astrology. It is said that eclipses are also points at which you can hide something. And so my prediction is not so much that he's not going to be king, I just think it will be very, very short-lived. And I always felt that that would be the case. Like, and, you know, obviously he's standing in, we've got his currency and stuff coming in. I'm just not sure. You know, when you stick something to the wall and it doesn't quite stick and then you see it kind of peeling off. That's the feeling that I got from looking at the coronation chart. It's kind of like it touches base, but it doesn't quite get off the blocks. And that's the feeling that I have from it. I think if it goes ahead, it will be very, very short-lived. I'll give it probably 2 years max.
It's interesting because the royal family are known to normally check out the astrology before they do things. I mean, it's very well.
Absolutely. They have a royal astrologer.
I think we're all surprised by that.
I was.
Weird.
Yeah, when I saw the chart, I was just like, that's, unless it's for a specific reason. I mean, you know, that's the only reason that I could come up with it. But when I saw it, I was like, no, that doesn't make sense to me at all. Just given how big an event it actually is and what it means for him and what it means for our country, I was very, very kind of, on the fence about that one.
Anybody else got anything they want to ask? Any questions? I'd ask about, obviously, astrologers were the people who predicted the pandemic, and they did it a whole year beforehand. I'm trying to think of her name now. There was one particular girl that very specifically said that the month, the year, the world's going to shut down, the world's going to shut down, something huge is going to happen. Don't know exactly what, but something huge is going to happen. And she was very specific, but a number of them very, very, very accurately predicted the pandemic. Do you see any reoccurrence of anything like that, Raph?
So in terms, I mean, like we've had, no, definitely not. In terms of other things that are going to kind of come in, yeah, unfortunately. So as we move into 2024, certainly from a feng shui and the Chinese astrology system, we're coming into what's known as period 9. That in itself is basically, we're going to have recurrences, but not ones that shut us down like this. It's really, in essence, this drive towards health and better healthcare systems is coming largely out of this. So, and it's interesting that you mentioned this, Anne. So when I was, all of the readings that I did for 2020, like the year ahead stuff that I did, what I kept seeing was people's houses not being sold, people kind of sitting still, people being locked in at home. And I'm thinking to myself, well, there's obviously something happening on the wider world stage, because everybody seems to kind of, all of the stuff that they had planned just wasn't going ahead. There was one signature in particular that came up. When I looked at it, I was like, there's no way this woman go to jail. She's like the straightest lace that I've ever met in my life, right? But, you know, it was saying you're homebound, you're not going anywhere, and it starts this month. And we couldn't puzzle it out. And then when it all hit, obviously it made total sense. There were a few astrologers that absolutely did it very, very clearly. Interestingly enough, some of them quite far beyond that as well. And a lot of them got a really, quite a lot of heavy stick, because it was like, why are you being so negative? And, you know, and then obviously when it all kind of hit, we saw what was what. But no, I don't think we will have anything like the pandemic that we've had prior. I do, however, see that there will be probably at least one or two more what we would call super viruses. But the thing is, we've had viruses since the dawn of bloody time. We're still here.
Yeah.
You know, we've made it this far, and we will continue to get
Well, it was the viruses that made us strong. I mean, my generation have actually done really well because we had mumps and measles and this, that, and the other, chicken pox, and we got them. We didn't get vaccines against them. We got them. Good old Lucozade. Watch a bit of Finger Bobs or whatever on telly. Right as rain, weren't we? Always, Lucozade was always the cure-all as kids. I think
It really was.
Gatorade in America, but yeah, your mum would just give you that and sit you in front of the telly, and you'd be all right, wouldn't you? So, but it's that the illnesses that give us the antibodies, and my generation have actually been all right. We kind of get it. We get up, but we're used to getting ill, get over it. That's it. But I'm glad. Yeah, I think there'll be more to come, but I don't see that scale. Right. So Ashley's asked a question. May I ask about what significance the 23rd of March 2023 has? My guide gave me that date on New Year's Day is very significant. Oh, that's interesting. So I find that interesting.
It's a great day. If you've seen the chart for that, there's a massive lineup of energy in the sign of Aries. So wherever Aries falls in your chart, you want to look to that space because it's going to be lit up like a Christmas tree at that point. There's going to be something like 5 energies. So at that point as well, the 23rd of March of 2023 is the new moon in Aries. So that is a really big point. So the fact that you've kind of picked that up intuitively is really awesome. Use it for something, all right? Like, yes, it will be a lot of energy because Aries is that initial sort of dynamic push. It's kind of like the rush of energy to get something started. The fact that we've got so much energy happening there. The only thing that I will say with that, because Aries is kind of head first. It's like head first, me first, elbows in, that's it. I'm jumping straight into it. They don't really stop to consider. So whatever you are initiating at that time, try to do the planning for that launch, especially if you've got one, before then, so that you're actually able to sort of do it in a calm space, so that when the time comes to launch, you can sort of do it in an easier energy. Mars in the first house qualify as Aries. There is some debate among astrologers with that question, Lisa. The first house is likened to Aries, but it is not Aries. So the houses are kind of like areas of life that things happen in. So the first house is you, your body, it's your mind, it's your face, like your literal features. That's all first house stuff. So if you've got Aries, if you've got Mars in the first, is that going to be by a transit, or is it going to be as that like a natal placement?
It's natal in Virgo.
Okay, all right. So yeah,
in
Virgo. Ooh. Okay, so always being precise and maybe sometimes finding one thing that I say to people with Aries energy or any kind of energy like this is, especially with the Virgo sort of part of it, you know, in the 90s, girls and their eyebrows, they start picking, and before you know it, they got a bloody line on their hair. That's Virgo energy. So you got to pick an end goal and stick with it, because otherwise you'll just keep going and chopping pieces away until you think it's perfect, and then you step back and go, "Oh my God, what have I done?" So find a way to manage it.
I'm a perfumer, and I actually do that. I have something beautiful, and then I keep working on it and ruin it.
Yeah, you've got to find a way to manage that. Walk away from it. Give it to somebody else and say, "Oi, what do you think about this?" You know, just to kind of see where it's at.
Yeah, it's about moving fast. They say today, move fast, break things, because if you wait for everything to be perfect, you miss the boat. And that is one of the biggest essences of business today. If Apple waited till their phones had no glitches, they'd miss the boat. They bring it out and you point it out. So move fast, break things. I think that's the biggest thing that holds, especially people working in the spiritual field. I often joke and they cringe because I often say, don't tell me you're redoing your website again. You're still redoing your website, and it holds people back, you know. You got to get on out there, put your energy out there. I love that. It sounds like an amazing year, Raph. It sounds like being a 7-year. I always think of a 7-year as you put everything in place, you set it all up. So I always think be very clear-minded about what you want. And from what you're saying there, well, Ashley, you said, can I ask a question? Anybody want to ask a question? Just ask, put your hand up, unmute or whatever. But it sounds to me as if this year, be positive and put your energy into something and amazing things will happen.
Absolutely, because you're getting more of what you put out. And like I said, because it's ruled by Neptune, it's going to amplify what you're already doing. So yeah, absolutely. Like keep it, obviously not everything's always fluffy in life, but keep it as happy and as positive as you can, so that that's the stuff that's amplified. The other thing as well, this is definitely, because 7 energy is known as a spiritual number. So really, I encouraged all of my people, build a spiritual practice. And it doesn't have to be, prostrating yourself and going into trances and all of that. It just has to be something short, simple, that you do every single day that acts as an anchor. And that's it. As long as you find something to anchor you this year, whatever happens, whether it's hype and spin, whether it's the best thing since sliced bread, you always know where you are.
Hi, may I ask a question?
Go for it, yeah.
Hi guys, yes, sorry, I can't come on camera. I look an absolute state, but I'll be here in spirit. So let me see, so many questions, but I'm going to hone it in and not eat the time. So firstly, Raph, let me try and wrap my brains around this. So there is, the year is the year 7, is that correct, for this 2023? But then, so I'm a life path number 8. So, but then when I work out what the year for me specifically is, it's a year number 1. So which, should I look at all 3 threads, or how does this work?
Oh, so if you're having a personal year 1, this is the most important year of the whole cycle. Do not waste this year. Ashley, your motto, your mantra has to be for yourself this year. Do I want this for the next 9-10 years of my life? That is the big question, right? So whatever you're doing this year, you have to ask yourself, do I want this around for that next period of time? Because the 1 year, whatever you set into motion will start to permeate and color and sort of
cycle,
filter into everything that you do over this next 9-10 years. The other thing with the 1 year as well, try things on for size. Like you don't just go to a clothes shop and go, well, no woman I've ever met in my entire bloody life ever goes to a shop and just picks up the first thing and buys that. Try it on. Does it fit good? Send a selfie to your mate, trout pout, all of that. Right? Try it all on for size and see, does it really fit? And at that point, that's when you say, right, this I want to be, important for the next 9-10 years of my life. The other thing as well, being a 7 year, 1 and 7 are very different energies, because 1 is kind of go, 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 whereas 7 is like, let's analyze everything, right? Let's build, let's do all of the planning and make sure we've done the research and stuff. So or should I say the part where they meet in the middle is 1 is truly a spiritual number because it's what they say is closest to God. And 7 is the number of God, as some people say, God, universe, whatever you call it. And so that's kind of the overlap. So one thing that I would encourage you to do this year is ask yourself, where does my spirituality meet the practicality of my life? And what is the overlap?
Oh, I love that.
Brilliant. Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, does that? No, my pleasure. Thank you for asking. Have a great 1 year.
Love that. So has anybody else got a question? Anybody else? Before I wrap things up, because I don't want to keep Raph all day. And anybody else got a question?
I just had a quick question about the war in Ukraine. If either of you had any thoughts on the possible length of it. I don't know if you actually predict something like that, but I'm very interested in that.
Length of
The war in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah. Any ideas, Raph? I mean, I didn't think it'd go on this long, to be honest. So
I genuinely didn't. And I put out a mea culpa not long after, because once it all really kicked off, I actually didn't see it going this long. And when I did, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I will put my hand up and own that. What I will say is we are going to see a curve. So it's going to do this, it's going to exacerbate, and then it's going to kind of burn itself out. I will say, though, because 7 is the energy of things that happen behind the scenes as well. So what may happen is a part of this whole thing dying out will be that many things come to light over why it's happening. And so that might be where it gets a little bit more intense. Honestly, I don't think we're going to be clear of it fully until we get into 2024. And the reason I say that is because we're coming into a universal 8 year. It's going to be a much different ball game then as well.
That's going to be interesting. Yeah, really interesting. I've got odd images in my head about certain things in politics for next year and the year after, and I'm still trying to slot them in and make sense of them. And one I've had about 6 months is Putin in this, it's not a square, it's a shape. It's almost like I'm wondering if there's a I keep meaning to look at a map, see if there's a territory. It's kind of like, then it comes over a bit there. But I just keep seeing this shape, and he's restricted to staying in that area. It comes out a bit, then there. I'll have to draw it. And I just keep getting in that space. I don't know, I'm really bad at joggers. The school I went to, which Raph knows, Warrenfield, we didn't learn things like geography. We didn't. My history come from
geography was over there.
I don't know where it is. I went there by plane. That's a typical thing, isn't it? So Raph, what I mean, you do so much. What do you offer people? I mean, have you got a regular monthly thing? Do you do private charts?
Yes, so I am literally just about to change my entire service offerings. Ooh. So at the end of this month, there's going to be a whole bunch of new weird and wonderful offerings that are coming to the world. At this moment in time, I do offer recorded videos and written readings. So a lot of those incorporate things like numerology. I can't help myself but throw the astrology in there because, you know, it's kind of just hardwired in at this point. So yes, you can find me on YouTube. That's where most people know me from. I put out weekly and fortnightly, monthly, and special transit videos where I'll talk about some of the bigger stuff that's happening. And very often I put out like series of videos. So if you want to know more about your life path number, if you want to know more about your personal year number, you can head over there. Each one of them is about 20, 30 minutes long, and that will definitely get you set up for using your personal year to best effect.
Amazing. I love this. I love this. And we've got one more question. Is it important to have your time of birth? Not everybody knows their time of birth.
Yeah. So if you know it, we like to have it within 15 minutes, because usually, especially with an ascendant, like let's say you're born at a specific time of night or a specific time of day, if the ascendant is very close to a cusp, that's where that time really kind of comes into play. There are some really good astrologers out there that can take you through a process called chart rectification. And so they'll ask you a set amount of questions about certain big events of your life, and then they'll work out your ascendant from there. It is a skill. It's not one that I would say I have just yet, but I'm closing in, I reckon.
You'll be able to do that. That's amazing. But you can still do a pretty accurate chart, can't you, from without the...
Yeah. You know, sun sign astrology gets a really bad rap, but actually I've seen, certainly over the course of 2022, I saw a lot of people's sun sign astrology play out very, very accurately with some of the big stuff, you know, and this without even looking at their ascendant. And they were kind of like, yeah, usually this stuff in the papers is not so accurate, but actually that's very close to what happened to me this year.
Oh, absolutely. Well, actually, Raph had a quick look at my chart, and I've got a secret, which I'm not telling you, but I'm on a secret mission, and he bloody come up with it. He outed the whole bloody thing. So, you know, this is a secret mission. I'm disappearing. You're not supposed to know that. So, yeah, he only had a quick look at my chart, and he totally got bang on what I'm up to. And it is a secret, and I'm not telling anyone. Yeah, it's amazing how accurate, and it's so specific, and it's not something I've done before. Well, not since I was 18. Not since I was 18 have I done anything like this before. So, and it's not my usual thing. So it's a. Do you think? Oh, I've got another question. one more. Do you think 2023 being a moon year, should we look more at our moon sign for accurate readings? What great questions.
Yeah, so if you're a woman, then the moon tends to have a bit more sway in your chart for sure, because obviously the moon is feminine by its very nature. I would say definitely check in with your moon, especially if you have a nighttime chart. So if you know you were born at night, yeah, that's me, Radiant Reality on YouTube. If you were born at night, definitely check in on your moon. If you're a woman, definitely check in on your moon. If you happen to be a guy and you're a Cancerian, or you have a strong Cancerian energy in your chart, then yes, absolutely, you should be paying attention to the moon, because not only is lunar cyclic, I'll tell you all a little secret here before we sign off. The more I study astrology, the more I come to realize Luna runs the show. Right, the big boys, the sun, yeah, they don't get me wrong, right, we can't live without all of them in some regard, especially not the sun. But when it comes to how this stuff plays out for us here on the ground, Luna is in charge, right? So if we call her like the cosmic wife, you know, they say happy wife, happy life. Yeah. Keep Luna happy, right? And we will all be happy.
That's amazing. Well, I'm going to put, so guys, look on YouTube, Radiant Reality. Follow Raph, because he's a really, really great astrologer. Just to say, he found out my secret. I think that's so funny. I just going, oh, cheek. I bet. And I'll be putting a link with this. This will be on my YouTube and various other things. But thank you for showing up, guys. But Raph, thank you. That was so enlightening. And you make it user-friendly. I find with astrologers, often I don't know what they're bloody on about. They start going on about nodes, this and that and the other. I haven't got a clue. Is it a good year? Who knows? You really explain it well. So that was just so helpful. Thank you so much. And we will talk again.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to be here. Take care, guys, and have a great year.
Fabulous.
Thank you so much. Thank you.